Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the second conversation in our Emerging Practice lecture series. Emerging Practice really highlights rising Caribbean design practices with distinct methodologies. Their practices produce accomplished bodies of work rooted in the practice of designing in Caribbean contexts, and all that means culturally, materially, economically, and politically. This year, we are exploring what it means to expand design practice. We are particularly interested in designers' work within the Caribbean that work within the Caribbean cultural forms, material realities, while also responding to modern production systems. My name is Jordan Chano. I'm the program director at Island City Lab. We are a think tank that aims to democratize the processes that initiate, build, inform, and maintain our towns and cities across the Caribbean. We're really excited today to be joined by Massiel Mejia. Massiel Mejia is a Dominican Landscape Architect, principal and founder of Massiel Mejia Arquitectura del Paisaje, a consulting firm dedicated to the design, planning, supervision, and management of landscape architecture projects based in Dom Rep since 2010. Though through her professional practice, she aims to leave a positive impact on the environment of each project, taking care of the details, honoring each element that is part of the ecology by producing quality green spaces of an architecture that preserves the environmental and historical values of its context, and in which nature always plays a fundamental and crucial role. Massiel, thank you so much for being here with us today. We'd love to hand it over to you for your presentation.
Massiel, you're muted. Unmute.
I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm really happy and honored to be here. And thank you guys for letting me this space in this conversation we will have with our experience and how we can exchange a different points of views and maybe contrast what we in the Caribbean have in this profession. You know that it's quite a challenge, and I'm really happy to be sharing all of my journey with you all. So this first picture we have here is explaining one of our most values as a landscape, being an island and having our coastal ecosystems, and it's part of our heritage in terms of nature. Next. Next.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. This is another picture, aerial photo from the same site, Cabo Rojo, Pedernales. This is a place that means a lot to me because when I first started to understand the landscape, being an architectural student from the design faculty here in the Dominican Republic, where I was born, raised, and have my first steps as a student and professional. This was the place I selected for my thesis project. Is a province at the southwest of our island in our country that explains a lot about our landscapes and dry forest, not only the coconut and the postal of the traditional landscape, which I find it very particular and defines our territory. So it's very important for us. Next. These are some pictures by that moment of my life when I was 23 years old, and I needed to understand as a student of architecture how the territory works in terms of large scale to the specific elements that compose the different systems of the landscape itself. Next. After coming back to the R in 2009, after studying abroad in Barcelona, which was my city of studying the landscape architecture, and I specialized in those terms, I came back to the island and found a very, that this profession has been practicing maybe at the mid of last century, and it's a young profession, but it's not formally yet in the country. So me and other members of this profession that had the opportunity of studying abroad also decided to form this landscape architecture and environmental planning society, Dominican Society, in 2016, because we all had the same concerns about the future of our profession, of our spaces in the society. How can we practice in our better ways as we were taught? And we had the same issues. So we initiated that society, but we have a lot to do. And one of the offers in the professional field of landscape architecture is the firm I founded when I arrived to the island, that it's a firm that consults, design, and managed landscape projects. Next. As Jordan said at the beginning, we take very serious the positive impact we are doing to the environment with each project. And we pay a lot of attention to the ecosystem, trying to analyze all the patterns of the surroundings and context where projects will be placed, and understanding that actual nature gives us better results as proposals. Next. Here's our team that is composed by different professionals of different fields related to the landscape architecture. Next. We aim to design with the natural beauty of our land, promoting local development, protecting our cultural heritage, and fostering human well-being. Next. Try to not only focus on the little scale of the garden, which is the most common maybe scale that people understand that landscape architects do in cities and countries here and in the Caribbean. And we're trying to give more about how to plan the land, understanding the context, and maybe navigate between all different scales and typologies. Next. We try also to very strongly to deliver proposals that are regenerative, authentic, and resilient. Next. And in our principles, we have, next, guiding in regenerative design. Next. Trying to contribute to resilient communities. Next. Promoting sustainable practices. Next. Encouraging also physical and mental health. Supporting social and economic growth. Preserving our culture and heritage also. And I've selected Crystal Park and that was a project that Doreen and Jordan had the opportunity to visit when they were in the Dominican Republic last year. And it was our maybe most recent project in this scale and typology of public space urban design. Cristo Park is a park, an urban park that was initiated because of the stream. We had open space stream, and is a park that collects stormwater, and the government decided to canalize these waters and make a structure of concrete. So they decided over that canal that was going to be closed, do public space for all the communities of the surrounding areas. Next. It is located in Santo Domingo, Distrito Nacional, the national district of the capital city of the Dominican Republic. Here is the Distrito Nacional in Santo Domingo. Here are some maps that can showcase the little percentage we have of green spaces in the metropolitan area. And Cristo Park is part of initially the infrastructure that was created in the 70s, early 70s, but it didn't have a particular use. So it was like a residual space. Next. It's a project that is 1.2 kilometers length, and it has like 40 meters of section. Next. These are all the neighborhoods and communities that were going to be affected directly by the construction and design of this space. And here we first analyze the existing landscape, trying to understand these existing conditions and situation, not only about the infrastructure, but also about the people and all of the problems they had with health and the conditions of the sidewalks and everything. So it was going to be a great opportunity for these people to have a space that function. Next. We tried to, with the morphology and topography, was the main element that we tried to understood and analyze with site surveys, because of the different slopes we could and the overflow, understanding how it worked to use it effectively. Next. Another interesting thing, we had to recognize and identify all the different tree species we found, and the results that we had. The fewer species were native, so most of them were frutals and exotic species, and they were going to remove them, most of them, because of the construction itself. Next. We try to map and understand the situation of land use and made these different analyses. Next. And then the process of the design with our initial conceptual steps. Next. Next. Previous. These diagrams explain conceptually what we try to do with different circulations that we're going to improve, not only pedestrian, but also bike lanes and different accessibility that the park we're going to have, with different points and platforms that will be used as plazas and the extension of the sidewalks. Next. These were the existing sections with different forms of strategies that were going to be implemented in the design. Next. And here we can see an overview top with a different program that we needed to implement in the park: the mobility, the recreation, sports, cultural, commerce services, and security. This picture was taken last year after the construction was ended, and it explains a lot of the good results we had after delivering the design and all the 2 years process of construction. We were together supervising the project with the engineering team. So we find it very similar to the original plan. Next. Here are the different systems we needed to think about that were previously explained in the master plan. We did go to the detailed design of the different urban furniture we have. The proposal sections with the proposal species that were considered to be from our country, from the specific ecological zone, endemics and natives. Some pictures of the initials, perspectives of the design. Amphitheater, we also had to implement different plazas with services and restrooms. Here a showcase of different parts of the process of execution. Next. From 2022, from 2023, and even last year. Next. The planting process, how we could work in collaborations with different design teams for the art, painting, and graphic design of the project. Next. Next. The program and the signs of the project were made by this technique of mosaics. Next. Here's how they were implemented all over the place. The different pedestrian paths with the slopes, because we have different levels in the topography proposed. We try to preserve the existing topography as we could. Next. Here are some of the gestures of preserving existing trees that were in a different level in the land. So we needed to do this pots, urban pots. Some parts of the process in this aerial view. Next. 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 Here is a frame, the first frame of the park that was the most green of all, because we had the opportunity to preserve most of the trees, the existing trees. So when it ended next, the picture of how it ended was very mature look, and it helped a lot. Is maybe the most fresh area of the park because of that. Next. 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 Here are some pictures of last year of the people and kids using those installations. Next. Next. Thank you. I think it's the rain.
Cristo Park es un proyecto de carácter urbano ubicado en el Distrito Nacional de Santo Domingo, un espacio público de 7 hectáreas de superficie y 1.5 kilómetros de longitud. La intervención del proyecto estuvo a cargo de la Corporación Dominicana de Acueducto y Alcantarillado de Santo Domingo, CAST, una obra de ingeniería realizada por Reconstruction que consiste en el saneamiento pluvial y sanitario de la antigua cañada sobre la avenida Tiradentes. El diseño de este espacio público estuvo a cargo de la firma de Massiel Mejia, Arquitectura del Paisaje, un parque que funge como un aporte de medio ambiente y a la calidad de vida de los ciudadanos de los barrios que conforman esta zona de la ciudad. El diseño del parque se ha concebido integrando los diferentes elementos del paisaje, a partir de un análisis detallado de las condiciones morfológicas de la superficie a intervenir y la estructura vegetal existente de la zona, intentando elevar la calidad ambiental y de vida de los habitantes, no solo de los barrios aledaños al proyecto, sino también de otros sectores del Distrito Nacional, el Gran Santo Domingo y otras provincias a nivel nacional. El Parque Urbano Cristo Park comienza en la avenida Tiradentes con el remozado Parque Cristo Libre y termina en el Zoológico Nacional. El proyecto proporciona senderos peatonales y una ciclovía de doble sentido que permite hacer el recorrido a todo lo largo del parque. En los bordes se colocan amplias aceras que en puntos estratégicos se convierten en plazoletas. En 2 puntos del parque se disponen áreas deportivas con canchas de baloncesto, una profesional y otra juvenil, 2 canchas de voleibol, una cancha de soccer, 2 gimnasios y parques de juegos infantiles. Cuenta con una plazoleta de patinaje de skateboard diseñada por el arquitecto y patinador Marc Carrasco. Esta obra mejora la calidad de vida y la salud de una parte importante de los capitaleños al brindar una solución medioambiental y un espacio al aire libre donde los usuarios puedan caminar, andar en bicicleta, hacer deporte y divertirse.
Wow. Thank you so much, Maciel. I remember when Doreen and I visited Crystal Park. We were like really taken by the fact that it was such an open space. I feel like there's a lot of, how you say, overly securitized space in the Caribbean. And the fact that there were no fences or barriers, it was sort of a permeable space that anybody could enter and leave and kind of walk through was really interesting. I think that's one of the things that mainly stood out to us. Especially like walking around the rest of Dom Rep, and there were security guards with shotguns and a lot of like securitization. And this area was so open and like inviting, right? So I guess, can you talk about that, how important it was to keep it open, to keep it like permeable, and how were you thinking about security otherwise? Massiel, you're muted.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, the purpose of that space, the reconstruction, is to reborn this use of the space and how people could use it actively. So before the design of this park, we had barriers that didn't invite people to overcome, because it was a space just with nature and vegetation and was insecure and had a lot of bad things going on there. So I think part of the public spaces designs are those purposes of inviting people and feel secure in the cities by using these kind of spaces. So we were very supported by the government and the institution that hired us with this challenge, that all of the process, they were agreed with that, having it. We did work with the different axes, because it only had 2 axes, transversal axes. So we needed more points of access along the project. So it was part of the proposal, we can say, to improve that also.
Yeah, I think access is such a crucial part of public space design. And yeah, I guess the over securitization in the Caribbean really goes against an idea of like the public, right? There's a sort of filtering of who can access and who can't. But this like takes me into another question really about like this idea of public space and public space development. I know a lot of green developments, communities get worried about displacement. They think, oh, this beautiful space is coming in, and there's a sort of anxiety about what is going to happen to us, and what's next. So I guess, how were you engaging with the community during this process? And do you feel like they have a lot of, input in shaping how, it works? Yeah.
Well, we were lucky enough because this place wasn't occupied by neighborhoods, because it was a residual space. So in those terms, we were safe, that we weren't affected negative in a negative way, the community. And at the beginning, we needed to map a lot. In the mapping process and the site surveying and analyzing, it was absolutely necessary to speak and understand the interests and the needs of that community, because was going to be the final user. But in another aspect, we had this program that was predetermined by the government, and that was our client also. So we needed to deal like through the design, how to express our experience of talking for weeks and months with the community, because we were very close to them in that process. So yes, it was very important in that they had a lot of expectations. They felt secure and safe because they knew what they were going to get. And the project's execution was so open along the process. So they, all the time during the 2 years process of construction, they saw all the steps and all the progress because we didn't have fences in the construction process. So they were connected to that process in that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think even in the construction, a lot in Kingston, there are these like massive zinc fence walls that block what's going on the inside, and it definitely feels like you're outside, that the community might feel outside of the process, right? But yeah, I guess it goes back to the barriers and the access and how you've like figured out how to like open it up.
Another challenge is in those terms, because we didn't have fences, people actively used at the moment they were like accessible to the space, they were through the project in the construction. So it was a threat by the planting process also, because you know the education maybe of the communities is not, they are not used to have these spaces and understand that.
Yeah, I do remember seeing like footprints in the concrete when when we were walking.
The dogs.
Yeah, of the dogs. Yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, outside of this project, where you had two clients, right? You had the government, and then you had the community, and you had to mediate sort of in between that. I guess, you know, outside of these like public projects, when you have like private clients, I know like landscape architecture is like really concerned with the ecology of the space and making it function and the sustainability of the space. But clients are more concerned about their bottom line and being as expedient as possible. How are you balancing like what you know to be like an ecological approach to design versus like client demands, and you know you're trying to like make money off you're trying to live off your scale, but like you also have a responsibility to the environment.
In first instance, I think in a private sector, when a client comes to us, they are aligned with our goals and our principles because they know what we do. So it's a first filter, I can say, that they are like in the same page with us. But in the process, that led us to understand and learn that economic viability is also important, and how the biggest challenge is how you can deliver a product that offer this rentability and also conserves the values that we understand in ecosystem and ecological terms. So it's quite this struggling all the time, like try to gain more green spaces and fight for that percentage of occupation in preserved areas. That's why we understand that analyzing our existing pattern is so important, because you have that argument with a client that base that have a lot of charge in the project. And also here in the park, I can say that always our mission is to guide and like have the right tools through the design to try to please like the political goals that most of the times can get over the technical, what is supposed to be the technical, what is you need to do proper. So, you know, in this specific case of Cristo Park, we had to struggle with the program in political ways, that goal that they needed to to have, but we were very free to propose in the green system infrastructure. So we were like having the opportunity of deliver the technical landscape aspects of the proposing scheme. So it was like a great balance in that way.
Yeah, I think, I mean, politics is always like a part of development. I feel like designers have to like embrace it rather than say, oh, this is, I never think design is 100% objective. There's always like some politics to navigate with that. But I think, you know, you had mentioned earlier about landscape architecture as a profession in the Caribbean, particularly in Dom Rep. I mean, I know in Jamaica, I feel like I know every landscape architect in Jamaica at this point, just because it's such a small and underappreciated profession or technical practice so far, despite this idea of the Caribbean as this lush paradise. The sort of designers of ecology, like the landscape architects, the designers of the landscape, don't really get the appreciation or the I don't think there's a lot of people understand the importance of the work landscape architects do. There are no schools for landscape design in the English-speaking Caribbean, for example, as far as I know. So, you know, can you talk more about the work you're doing, like advocating for landscape architecture from your perspective, and how important, I know you're also a lecturer, you're also teaching, how important is that to the processes you hope to see for the profession?
Well, at the beginning, when I came back, I needed to understand the situation of the profession at first and how informal it was. So I went back in my memory when I was an architectural student, and we have it as a signature. I mean, as just a part of a semester, the landscape design, and I truly understood it when I was abroad. So I felt like I have like had this responsibility with the student community, and to start educating by the sensibility they needed to have as architects with designing projects that were going to affect in some way the environment. So those first steps and principles, I think it's in the university. So I decided to spend the last 8-10 years of my life educating in that sense, but also educate the population that are going to be those clients that will hire us, because they understand eventually the need of having us in different teams, collaborating with architects and engineering, because our reality is that most of the times the architect and the engineer is sufficient and enough for designing a project, but there are some occasions that you need to have a multidisciplinary team in a project in order to understand even more those difficulties that you will eventually. So we don't have a program of master's degree. That's something we need to work on. Puerto Rico, for example, that is a Spanish speaking island, they already have this master's degree, and the College of Architects is with the landscape architecture community also. So it's a step forward, maybe us, and there's something we need to learn about those practices there.
Yeah, there's definitely a precedent that can be sort of across the Caribbean as well, English speaking included. And you mentioned studying abroad and then returning home. We've also been interested with this idea of like coming back and working in a context that was familiar but is now new. You know what I mean? So I'm sure when you studied in Barcelona, there were standards, there were flat palettes, there were sort of different materials. What did it mean to come back and like relearn about the ecology of Domrep, of the Caribbean, limestone, alluvial, all these different like soil conditions? What was that process? Yeah.
A beautiful process. It has been a wonderful journey, I can say, to start with a positive, and it's a result when you love what you do. It's going to be easy, but in other aspects, it has been a challenge because of that, and it's like relearning everything and starting all over again. But with the knowledge I acquired in Barcelona, which was great. I had great mentors, and the methodology we use here in the firm and our studies are because of that from education I had. So it was basically trying to understand our climate, our territory, our situation in cultural aspects. And with the practice, you get better at that. So in terms of plant palettes, for example, I spent the first 3-5 years of learning in botanical aspects and trying to understand our forest and the different ecological zones we are so glad to have here in the Dominican Republic, and the great biodiversity we have in the island. So I'm really connected to that root, and it was like the first that it's been growing with time. So we have that on mind every single opportunity we have to like deliver and maybe recovery forests that are not just primaries. We have the human intervention and the not well planified planned developments have cost, these situations with nature. So yes, it has been interesting learning process.
Yeah.
Beautiful at the same time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, relearning and reintroducing yourself to a context that you kind of grew up in and are familiar with like through a new lens is very interesting.
And I can say that was a life-changing decision because I was an architect. Well, I am an architect, but I decided to turn into another direction with the risk that I was going to practice exclusively in this field without that, with a profession that is barely known and underappreciated, as you said. So it has been all about education and patience and one project at a time. And with time, I think we are doing what we are doing gets to people, and here it functions that way in our country because we are so little here.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Massiel. There's a bunch of questions in the chat. I don't know that we'll be able to get to all of them. It seems, there's a lot. So I'll just go through. There are a lot of landscape architects with technical questions. Okay. So I'll try to go through them. Maybe I'll group them up. So Kevin Talma, I believe, asks, was there any scope for unearthing or exposing the stream? He also asks, is there any irrigation to the new landscaping?
In the park?
For Crystal Park, yeah.
At the beginning, yes, but being realistic is in hands of God right now. So we that's true because of at the end, we did an amazing job with very poor resources because most of the resources were into the first stage of the construction, that was the canal, concrete canal. But thanks to the zone, that it's very humid and the rains are constantly happening there, and also the palette that we chose made that space resilient, and they are alive, most of them. So we had a huge percentage of survival in terms of planting because of the species we chose to propose. That's one of the things that we.
Jasmine asks, is this project tied to any sustainability initiatives? Like, does the stormwater get reused? Are certain plant types of interest from a climate change mitigation lens? You kind of answered it a little.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me go back. I forget language barriers. She's asking, what were the sort of sustainability initiatives that you guys thought about through the process, or resilient initiatives in the design process?
Well, try to have more permeable surfaces. The softscape is like the half of the surface of the project, and also the accessibility and the different vegetation design that we understand. It's
right. So Mackenzie S asks, what is your process of connecting with craftsmen or builders? Were they local? What were your relationships like? What did you learn from the craftsmen or the builders or contractors during this process?
okay. Our relationship with the contractor of construction. Are you referring to?
The craftsmen, like the guy that did the mosaics or the graphic designers, the team.
We were very connected. Hopefully we knew each other as collaborating teams. So it was a great news to have them in our team, because and also the manufacturing of the furniture. It was someone who is industrial designer, and the prototype, we were very close to the process of execution of the different benches and furniture. And with the constructor also, we spent all the 2 years process of construction near them. So it was difficult because they weren't used to construct a park, a public space, because they know their know-how is for the buildings. So it was quite a new challenge for them, and I think they did a great job in those terms.
Yeah, absolutely. The furniture is really amazing. Jenna asks, is the community involved in the maintenance? And I'm also interested in, what does the maintenance look like for the park?
No, the local government is in charge of the maintenance, especially of the green spaces. And I constantly go to the park, and I see that the infrastructure of all the equipment and different sport fields is in good conditions so far. So, but it's very young. I mean, I don't know how it's going to be in the further years. I hope the government takes charge of it, because it's then it will be, I'm being hope and positive in that way, because here we don't know what's gonna happen with the maintenance. So, but we try to proposed species that required low maintenance. And then, we tried an interesting story in the process that we try to reduce always the grasslands. I mean, we don't like to put grass because it's a lot of maintenance, and we knew what work we will have eventually, but they decided to change some of the herbaceous plants we already planted because of they needed to, with the grass, you can showcase more quickly, like the image of the delivered project. So, were decisions that I wasn't agree with them, but it happened. And
They're
then
putting grass for
nowadays,
marketing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have that issue, but I can't do anything about it right now.
Yeah, maintenance is interesting. I think the Caribbean is a very import heavy region, and so like I think a lot of designers use imported material and
Yes.
items, and to maintain them you have to import again, and that gets like very costly over time. So I think this idea of like using local materials,
Yes.
but also like local species, not using grass, using low maintenance materiality is
Mhm.
sort of crucial to start, and hopefully it gets maintained because it's such an important space in Denmark.
And it
Um,
has an intensive use also, the
yeah,
park.
A lot of people, use it. A lot of people use it. Kevin again asked, what was the budget and how was it funded? If you have any insight on that.
Yes, I think it was, wow. I mean, $10 million, yeah, approx. But the 70% was, under the park. So we did what we could, design with the materials, low cost materials, concrete based, most of the hardscape surfaces, and yeah, it
So
was quite an investment. Yeah.
70% of the 10 million was the canalization.
Mhm.
So you had like 3 million. Okay. It was a tight budget then. You did a lot with the
Yes,
budget you
trust
had.
me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And you don't see it. It's underground.
Yeah.
So, it's functioning because it's stormwater recollector. So,
I think we're about at time, but I think there's one last question I think is really interesting. Do you see the community using it in the ways you thought they would, or are they using it in new ways that you didn't imagine?
most the ways that were designed, maybe a little path, they are pedestrian because they shortcuts, and there are some things people have planted also fruits trees, and like
Yeah.
it's their backyard, and I like that because they are getting along with the space and feeling free to plant whenever they want. So I think they are engaging well. The local government is projecting movies in the amphitheater on Sundays afternoon. So I think it's very nice. And with time, that nature takes value over time. So maybe in 5-10 years, that will be one of the lungs of the metropolitan area in our city.
Yeah, that's amazing. This was it's such a great project, Massiel. Actually being there and walking through it was such an important part of our experience when we're in Denmark. So I just want to thank you so much. I love this idea of like the community planting on top of your design. It's like a collaborative landscape design project with you and the
Yes.
community. That's such a it's such a great process that I think you guys have created and fleshed out. Want to thank you so much for being a part of our emerging practice lecture series. We really wanted to expand just beyond architecture into other forms of practice, other forms of how architects or designers are working and designing in the Caribbean. So I think this was a fantastic project to show and share with everyone. So we're going to close out. I just want to let everybody know we have one more lecture in the Emerging Practice Lecture Series on the 27th of March on Thursday with Vernelle Noel. She is a computational designer that works in wire bending for carnival costumes. So I hope we'll see everybody there as well. Massiel, your work is amazing. I hope there are many connections that come out of this for you with English-speaking landscape architects as well. So thank you so much.
I'm really sorry about my English. It's not the best one. You can also find our work on Instagram, that it's more updated than the website. The website is still on work. I'm gonna write our page. And thank you very much for having me here. It's an amazing honor, really, to have all these comments because it's something we do with a lot of intention and with love, and we're so happy that the results are being good. So thank you.
It's fantastic, and your English is fantastic. So it is 100 times better than my Spanish. So I will say, amazing. Thank you so much for the presentation. I know it was hard. I know you're nervous about English, but I think it went really well. So thank you so much, Massiel. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good one.
Bye.